All right. This is going to be a fun talk to give. I'm not sure how many of you caught me at the main stage about a half hour ago, but I am in my post-Gitcoin journey. Just announced a thing called Supermodular, which is a venture studio that's building on top of and adjacent to Gitcoin's protocols. And Hypercerts is a collaboration between Supermodular and Protocol Labs. And really excited to unveil the work that we've done on Hypercerts to you all today. All right, so it looks like we've got the slides. Let's roll. So we want to reward impact with Hypercerts. The format of this talk will be the opportunity, the solution that we've put together, why is it better than existing solutions, and then what's next, how you can get involved. So basically, there are trillions of dollars of capital available for public goods, whether that's administered through NGOs, local governments, state governments, national governments, or even international type institutions. Our legacy institutions spend a lot of money and time and resources creating impact in the world. And one of the things that we're really looking at in the Regen Web3 space, of course, is how to take that impact and do it better, faster, cheaper on Web3 rails. And that is the category that the Regen Web3 ecosystem is. And I'm just so confident that this will be a breakout category of Web3 in the next market cycle, because if you look at how much money there is available for public goods, it's 11x the current crypto market cap. So there's just a ton of upside in creating impact and getting rewarded for that impact. And we want to launch Hypercerts and able to do that. So one of the things that we were looking at as we were looking at Hypercerts is pre-Hypercerts, how a lot of different impact entrepreneurs are spending their time. Spoiler alert, they have to run these complicated, sophisticated, and sometimes costly on their own dial for dollars type of operations where at least half of their budget goes to just raising the next funding cycle. And one of the things that we're looking to do with Hypercerts is create an ecosystem in which people are creating impact and just getting rewarded for creating that impact, thus eliminating the need to have a complicated and sophisticated funding ecosystem built around them. And so impact entrepreneurs are the people who are creating impact in their work in creating a DAO. That can either be a primary stated mission of their work, or it can be a secondary externality of the work that they're doing. And our target customer with Hypercerts is impact certificates, is impact entrepreneurs, and expanding the TAM of impact entrepreneurs. We want to take it from this like lefty, like ponytail having guy to like every entrepreneur across the world is excited about creating impact, because that's where you can build a venture scalable business. And bring in some of the most sharpest, shrewdest entrepreneurs that we're working on, that are working on entrepreneurship in order to work on impact certificates. So how many people in the audience are familiar with carbon credits? All right, pulse check on the audience. You're still awake and paying attention. So carbon credits are basically a use case in which you remove a certain amount of tons of carbon from the atmosphere, and then you get a certain amount of credits. And those credits are expected to have a certain market value associated with that. So carbon credits are exciting because what they do is they take kind of like the paperclip maximizer of capitalism, and they create a systemic reason why people across the world will want to remove carbon from the atmosphere. They can now get paid for having impact in their local community and across the global community. And so Hypercerts are kind of built on top of carbon credits in a way, intellectually. And let's note their downfalls. 99% of sales of carbon credits come from cap and trade type mandates from government, and only 1% of them come from people who are volunteering to create carbon credits. And there's a varying degree of quality of carbon credits. Many of them are on legacy rails, but there are many people here who are working to bring them onto Web3 rails, where they can have the benefits of a global, credibly neutral, transparent, and programmable monetary system. And carbon credits are not a perfect system, but they create powerful incentives. What are Hypercerts? Hypercerts are just carbon credits, but on any impact vector. So we're taking the progress and the systemic changing of incentives that come from carbon credits, and we are allowing that to happen on any impact vector. So you can imagine a carbon removal hypercert. So we've taken carbon credits and created a vehicle that is a superset of what carbon credits are by allowing them to be on any impact vector, and then we've just baked in carbon credits back into this. So you can see this hypercert design right here for carbon removal, in which 10 tons of carbon have been removed from the atmosphere, and there's been an impact evaluation by different impact evaluators that have rated this as at a certain impact rating and have verified that it has happened at a certain time scale. So you can then expand this forward into my first love, which was growing and sustaining open source software. What if we could issue a hypercert when you contribute on Gitcoin grants, or if you use radical drips to support your favorite open source project? This is a module that we can build back into Gitcoin grants, or into Radical, or into Giveth, or any of the plurality of mechanisms that are being used to support public goods in order to track that impact and evaluate it. And hopefully, if we're successful in tracking that impact, we can create buy pressure for the hypercerts and make it profitable just to create impact for a lot of these organizations. Open source hypercerts, really close to my heart with Gitcoin. Journalism funding hypercerts. Journalism has suffered from a glut of a lack of funding since Craigslist decimated their business model in Web 1. And we've gotten this place where journalism, a lot of newspapers across the country are closing down, and we've got more of like an infotainment kind of media environment that's evolving because of that. What if you broke a major story and that changed the game in a local community or in a political situation, and you got a hypercert for supporting that work? All right, so I think I'm going to hand it off to Holke at this point. So Holke, take us away. Oh, clicker. There you go. All right, give it a hand for Holke.
All right. This is working? Perfect. So basically what we see here is an on-chain SVG. So it's generated from the data from the hypercert, but importantly, not only from the hypercert, but actually also from the evaluation part. And this is important that we actually distinguish these two parts from each other, because the hypercert in itself just accounts for an action that we expect to be impactful. So a hypercert really defines who did what, when, and what kind of impact area does this hypercert really touches, and in what time frame. And then in addition to that, we have the rights that says like whoever owns this hypercert can do like something with it, or sometimes it's just like, oh, it's like you can publicly display that you supported this cause. And then in addition to that, we have the evaluation part, and we separate that in order to make the system more flexible. And this includes kind of the self-evaluation part, but also the independent evaluations from others, so that they can actually develop their own evaluations that then point to the hypercert in itself. What we have done so far is that we have developed a pilot where you can actually test it right now on Hypercerts.xyz. We developed that with RateGuild. Shout out to them. Really fun to work with them. And so the Hypercerts v0, basically, you can just create them currently on Girly Testnet. And we implemented the EIP 3525. I think it's one of the first implementation of that. And why we did that is because oftentimes when you actually create impact, it is about collaborating and cooperating towards this impact. And that's why with this EIP, we can basically, with Kevin and me, do a project together, and Kevin did a little bit more work, then he can own 70% of this hypercert, and I own 30% of this. And let's say Evan supported us as well, then Kevin and me can actually agree that Evan also owns like 10% for his support of the project. And that's what we have done so far, and like we want to expand it now also to add the evaluation part and to bring this into use in different use cases. So a use case where we think, or like a mechanism, a potential dynamic between the actors who would use hypercerts would look something like this, or actually how it looks today is that oftentimes just like a funder funds with a grant some contributors that create some public good and then create some impact. And we kind of hope that the grant money then really results in impact. And oftentimes it doesn't, unfortunately, but in some cases, of course, it does. So this system does work sometimes, but I think we can improve it, and we improve it by basically the contributors first creating a hypercert, defining what they set out to do. If they need funding, initial funding to make this project, to create this public good, then they can get funding through the hypercert, and the funder actually gets awarded part of the hypercert for this funding. And then it looks very much the same. They create a public good, they create an impact, but the incentives actually changed quite a bit. The incentives changed because afterwards, now we have an evaluation, and this evaluation is not just like an impact report as it is often today, where like everybody wants that it looks kind of good and looks like everybody created impact and everybody is happy about it. But actually, it is an impact evaluation that signals to retrospective funders if the impact was actually created and what projects were more impactful than others, because that is the signal that the funders really care about. And then retrospectively, the funders now fund the hypercert again, which then leads into more upside for the contributors. So that's why the contributors, when creating the public good and the impact, have an incentive from the start to really create as much impact as they can. The hypercerts, prospective and retrospective funders can also exchange the hypercerts, and evaluators can also be used as kind of scouts for prospective funders to see where the next best team is to create public goods that are impactful. So why is this actually better? Kevin already pointed towards some of those things. So one, like if we reward impact afterwards, it is much easier to actually increase the rewards based on the impact that we observe. And that leads to the situation that you can just go out there and create a public good and create impact, and you can take the risk that it fails because you also gain an upside if you are successful. Second, that might actually lead to attracting more talent because the more talent creates more impact and you share some of the upside. Third, classic grants are oftentimes quite restricting. So the retrospective funding opens up the solution space more because whenever you actually go out and make a decision where to take your project, you can make the best decision based on the retrospective evaluation that comes afterwards and not just on the previous grant that you wrote maybe 6 months ago. As long as you create impact, you can create hypercerts and get funding for that. So we have like also recurring income streams. For retrospective funders, the upside is that it's much easier to actually fund something after you see the impact. So especially when you see public goods that are non-linear. So basically the impact is only created if the project is really finished. For example, a bridge, half a bridge shouldn't get funded, and with like retrospective funding, the risk wouldn't be on the retrospective funder. And overall, if we have really good evaluations, contributors actually learn from previous iterations which hypercerts got rewarded and can learn from the impact and the evaluations. So over time, we create more and more learnings, what kind of public goods should be implemented here. So overall, if the hypercerts becomes like really a primitive for a lot of funders and projects, then it also creates a dynamic funding environment where it's easy for funders to cooperate. It's easy for projects to also share because they all use the same primitive of a hypercert that can be shared between project and between funders. Last advantage of this, hypercerts, I talked about using this for retrospective funding, but it's not only limited to that because it can also be used for bounties, for grants, and for other things because it is just describing the action that is supposed to be impactful. So what's next? What's next is that we want to like put this into practice. We want to build on top of that. There are ideas about retrospective funding pools, about like how do we really implement the evaluators, how do we prototype on Hypercerts different decision mechanisms, what grants or retrospective Hypercerts should get funded. So there's a lot of things that can be done on top of the Hypercerts and where Hypercerts can be used for. And as Kevin introduced, there's a large opportunity to create mechanisms, create structures in order to allocate a lot of money more efficiently than it is allocated today. And with that, I hope I can welcome you to the Public Goods Hyperspace, welcome you to the Telegram group to discuss it more or to try it out on Hypercerts.xyz.